Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are dialing in from. Welcome to our March Innovation Forum meeting. And we are very pleased to have Jason and Sam with us from Kanoa. I'm very excited to hear all about the Kanoa suite and the platform, and really how they're revolutionizing the MES landscape. So without any further ado, I will hand it over to Jason and Sam to take us through. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you all so much for having us here today and letting us present. I am Sam Russum. I'm joined by my colleague Jason Kook. We are from Kanoa. Thanks a lot to Coaster Consulting for inviting us and Camps for hosting the event. As we were talking a little bit coming into this, we're one of the newer Camps members. We just joined within this calendar year. Though, as Jason was also saying, they've been in the Pacific Northwest for a long time. I personally am not. I'm over in Philadelphia, but a lot of the Kanoa resources are in the greater Seattle, Tacoma area. We really specialize in this type of manufacturing software. So we're really happy that we found Camps and get to be a part of this community. And we're excited that this is the first thing we really get to do with you all, which is present this webinar about unleashing potential in manufacturing through smart manufacturing technologies like what we provide at Kanoa. Here's my plan for today. Of course, the idea is that we don't want this just to be a commercial for us. We want this to be a generally helpful and useful thing for any manufacturer that wants to do smart manufacturing, whether you're working with Kanoa or one of the many other camps members that are promoting this type of intelligence in the manufacturing world. So we're going to start with some introductions and an overview of Kanoa as a company. And then we're going to talk about some overall points around just tips of how to get started around smart manufacturing initiatives, especially if you have been struggling to get something off the ground. Hopefully there will be some good tips in there to guide you. Now, we are all doing this for the purpose of an application, and what better example do we have than Kanoa MES and our software? So we will do a demo of the software that we make and talk about the values that that can do as a potential smart manufacturing application that you all could be implementing. And again, whether that's Kanoa or something else, we'll broadly talk about some of the benefits that you can expect from our software and other smart manufacturing initiatives. And we should have some time at the end for a Q&A if people want to go into more details. And of course, you'll always be able to follow up with me, Jason, and the Kanoa team if you want a more in-depth look at our software and what it is we do. So first, again, I've talked a little bit already. I'm Sam Russum. I'm VP of Business Development at Kanoa, but I was recently complimented to say that I'm a little bit of an odd duck in sales and that I do have a big engineering background. I worked for a systems integrator for 14 years before joining Kanoa, doing a lot of PLC work, and then eventually growing to run the smart manufacturing team for a small, medium-sized integrator in North America. A lot of experience in food and beverage and pharma. And then when Jason called me, who I'd known for a long time, and showed me the software they were building at Kanoa, I just thought it was really incredible and solved a lot of problems that we were running into in my day-to-day, and was excited to join the team. That's a little bit of my background. Jason, how about you go through a little of yours?
Oh, will do, thanks. My background is I was originally an electronic engineer a long time ago. Realized at that time when software was just coming out into every industry, went back and did a degree in software engineering for real-time systems. Have used that throughout my entire career. We worked, myself and my other partner, worked in the semiconductor industry. So we were doing automation, robotics, and process control, and actually connecting up OEM equipment as it was brought into the fabrication plants, and hooking it up via SexGem to the host supervisory control system. That was really the precursor of MES. In that time, or since that time, actually went out of software, worked as an operations manager for a steel company and metal recycling. Did that for 7 years and was aghast at the lack of automation of data that we had so readily available to us in the semiconductor industry. From there, that's where we switched, went back into software, created Kanoa, created MES solutions to basically bring semiconductor style or standard data analysis and reporting to every type of manufacturer, whether you're a small craft brewery or a bakery. And yeah, that's what we're working on. Oh, you're muted, Sam.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Twice, thank you, Jason. That's me and Jason. Let's talk a little bit about Kanoa, right? Kanoa, we're really trying to revolutionize manufacturing with our software solutions, right? And I do think it is really important. You'll hear me talk about it a lot. Our software is really designed to drive continuous improvement and operational efficiency. Software like ours, you go ahead and you put it in, it only does so much on its own. It really comes into play, into value, and really improves operations when it's being used and useful by the people that actually run these plants every single day. We build these modules in our software on Inductive Automation's Ignition platform. I'll go into more about what that means. Some of you might know Ignition, some of you might not, but we will talk about Ignition and how that plays into our software and how it's a great tool for smart manufacturing, again, with or without Kanoa. Our modules for Ignition are really designed to be simple, accessible, and they work out of the box so that you can start using this within a day or a couple of days of you installing the software, but also retaining that flexibility because we know every manufacturing process is different and you need to be able to customize this for your specific use case. So that's what we do at Kanoa. So next section, now we're getting into more of the meat of the presentation here. Let's talk broadly about just some tips and ways that you all as manufacturers can get started with your manufacturing initiative. So first, what is smart manufacturing? We keep on talking about it. At its core, a lot of what we are doing is integrating all these digital technologies to improve manufacturing processes, and that is really broad and intentionally, right? Us implementing new robotic systems and things like that, or implementing AI, that's all smart manufacturing, as is MES. It really is a broad term of just this technology application. But at the root of a lot of it, and what's changed over the past 20, 40 years, is that we have moved more from that mechanical physical space into more of a digital space where data has become so much more important. So a lot of what smart manufacturing means today is the ways that we facilitate that real-time data collection and analysis, and the faster we can close the loop of collecting data and then using it and seeing the results, the faster we go through that, the better we're all being. We also tend to see these be the most successful when they're taken with an evolutionary approach, especially if you're a manufacturer who is sitting there and you're hearing about AI and cloud computing, and you turn around and look at your factory and just think, I'm so far away from any of that. Everyone starts somewhere, and that's where a lot of the advanced factories also started, right? So we can take this evolutionary approach to the way that we implement this technology, starting with where you're at, knowing that you have manual processes, and continuing to automate data and processes with this technology as we're delivering value from its implementation. So a lot of times with smart manufacturing, you'll hear the idea of like self-funding projects, where the idea is that I have one initiative that gives me a certain ROI, and then my returns from that fund the next initiative, and so on and so forth. And then finally, a lot of the reason that we're having this conversation is just that this technology continues to become more available, faster, stronger, and cheaper than it ever was before. The idea that we can be doing $500 edge devices at some of these plants, that the cloud is an accessible solution and secure solution for a lot of us, and we do not need to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in data centers for factories, is just really powerful, especially for small to medium manufacturers where that capital investment was really difficult. So a lot of potential brought with all this new advanced. So this is one potential architecture that could be what a smart manufacturing system looks like. Again, we have a detailed version over here, and then we have a very simplified version on the right as well. This is also from Inductive Automation's website. This is their recommended IoT architecture, is what they call it. And we'll generally walk through this, where you'll see we have some PLCs and RTUs on the factory side of the equation. This is where we're getting all of our machine data. And then somehow we are getting that into MQTT. So MQTT is a relatively new protocol in the space that is really good at efficiently transmitting manufacturing data and doing store and forward for all of that data. So it'll protect it in the event of a communication disruption. So in this case, they're using a lot of MQTT to get this data from the equipment, process it, send it up to the cloud where they have an Ignition server. Here they're doing the work. We're doing some processing of all of that data. We might be talking to other systems like ERPs and CRMs and combining that with our manufacturing data. And at the end of the day, we're usually trying to get that to some type of user, right? We do, of course, have the idea that we could be getting a lot of people out of the plants, the manufacturing processes, but we're not there yet. And getting this data to a person so that they can make the right decisions is still usually the end point, is a human person. So it's really important. That is the idea and the context that we are delivering to. That all of this data is collected to make it so that a person can make an easier and correct decision. So again, we've talked about the more complicated version of this, but really, this is what we are. The right side of this diagram is what we're talking about here. We have edge devices. Those are what we're using to talk to the equipment. We have operator terminals. Those are what we're using to get data from and present data back to people. That might need to go through a firewall or some type of network that you have, which is actually managing the application, which is the brains of it. So again, super simple, but this is generally the type of architecture we're talking about for these kinds of solutions. So if you look at that and you think again, no, that all sounds great, but I'm not quite sure where to start, I have a couple suggestions. The first would be you might be able to leverage hardware that you already have on your sites. And the thing that you want to look for that is two of the more smart manufacturing protocols, MQTT or OPC UA. Things like OPC DA and some more proprietary protocols, those are either very specific to a certain number of devices or are not the best for cybersecurity. MQTT and OPC UA, much better options. And they are things that you can frequently install on hardware that you already have. If you have a server, if you have an edge device that does not have this capability, it's very likely something you could put into that, which will lower your entry costs because you just don't need to buy that hardware. Now, if you do need to buy some hardware, if that idea of leveraging what you have isn't appealing for some reason, edge devices are really coming to an affordable point and a variety of price points that give you a lot of really powerful options. You can get a on-logic Raspberry Pi based industrial grade data collector for $500-600 these days, which, and again, that is industrial grade. It is hardened. It is designed to be dust shock proof and all of that stuff. You can go lower if you want. You can get a $30 Raspberry Pi if you really want to. You can go more expensive, of course, too. The idea being, especially if we're just trying a couple of things out and doing proofs of concept, there's a lot of really cool solutions out there to get data from all of this equipment. And yeah, it's really powerful to use one of those to get started. My last point here is around considering the cloud, especially, again, for small and medium manufacturers. The idea of buying, expanding, maintaining a data center can be very intimidating. That's not your business. You're a manufacturer, right? Not an IT company. The cloud really is becoming a really good option for offloading that expertise to someone else so that you're not having to buy more servers, that you are renting these, leasing these from an AWS and Azure or someone else, and connecting to the cloud and having them responsible for the infrastructure, security, all of that stuff. The other nice thing about this is if all of the other buzz around Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing is appealing to you, if you want to do AI, if you want to tie into PLM systems and things like that, you're going to need to be able to get on the cloud anyway. So remember, connecting to the cloud is a prerequisite for almost any AI application. So if you are thinking about that future, what does the next 10 years of manufacturing hold? Connecting these plants to the cloud is probably a part of that equation. And there's a lot of interesting ways that we can set up our smart manufacturing hardware if we know that's one of our ends.
Sorry, so we do have a question in the chat. It was like, what is MQTT?
Actually, do you want to take that? You have a better technical explanation than me, probably.
Yes, I will. It's a message queue telemetry transportation, and that's a bit of a mouthful, but it's basically IIoT. It's the Industrial Internet of Things. It's a protocol that allows you to take far field devices, sensors that are maybe out in the field, and it's got a very low burden to push that data up to a broker. It's not that new. It's been around for about 25 years. It was developed for the oil and gas industry, for their sort of pumps out in the sort of gas fields. It came to notoriety through Cirrus Link and Alan Nipper, who was the founder of it, when it was used by Facebook Messenger as the protocol for sending instant messages around. Because whereas you have OPC UA and a lot of tags on PLCs where you're trying to get the data of how much time I'm running, what are my production counts, what are my oil pressures, that's always polling. MQTT doesn't poll. What it does is it looks for a change in state or a change in value, and then it will publish it. And it doesn't just publish it to one device, it publishes it to a broker. Now anyone can subscribe. So it really reduced the network bandwidth needed for getting all of this data from your machines up to information systems who actually want it. And what they also did is they built in store and forward so that if you lose connectivity, no problem. It will store all that data. And as soon as the connection comes back, it will publish that data and saying, here's the current value. Here are all the values you've missed. When it came about and they created the module for Ignition for us, it was a game changer for us. Before that, we were always looking at redundant systems. What if we can't get this data? If you lose production data during production run, that's a problem. All of your analytics, how am I doing? My KPIs are off. MQTT became the savior.
Absolutely. Thank you for noticing that, Jason, and good response in there. Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. And do feel free to keep on dropping questions in the chat. We'll jump in and answer them. We're used to just going off the cuff and working through that. So yeah, don't be shy. Okay, last slide on a couple of implementation tips before I get into our product demo. One is just starting simple and not making things too hard on yourself. We have a customer we're working with right now. We just had a conversation. They're planning on implementing Kanoa ops for 8 of their plants, all in one go. They had the engineering team go out there and start to get some of the data points and things, and came back with all of this like granular machine level data, at which point the sponsor raised his hand and said, whoa, that's great, but that's a lot more detail than what we should get to start. Let's just start by defining every line at each of these plants, defining our OEE at the line level. And then as we run into problems or find specific needs, that's when we'll drill into the individual machines and start to turn those on too. I applaud that decision. I think it's a really great mentality around it. You don't try to eat the whole elephant, right? You take a reasonable bite and you continue to expand and make things more complex over time. Which also brings up prioritization, right? Of course, we want to be prioritizing the processes that are going to give you the highest return, but also remember that return on investment has 2 sides of that equation. For every machine asset that you might want to make smarter, there's a certain cost to get it smarter, and there's a certain benefit that you're going to realize from that. So you're going to have machines that are really old but have really high potential. You'll have machines that are brand new, but really there's not a lot to do with them. So yeah, looking at all of that and prioritizing both cost and benefit, very important. Collaboration is also super important for a lot of these smart manufacturing initiatives. By definition, you are probably getting into new territory by adopting a project like this. So lean on your partners to help out, right? If this is your first MES project, Kanoa is there with you to make sure that it is going to be a successful one. If you're nervous about connecting to the cloud and cybersecurity, find a partner that is going to work with you and help you on that. So finding the right partners that are excited to collaborate with you is really important as you're going through these new journeys. And then very importantly, you should know that these smart manufacturing initiatives are just the beginning of your journey. The technology is just a piece. Actually using this technology, changing your people, changing behavior, changing your process is so much more of, is why we're putting these systems in the first place, right? So definitely remember that implementing these initiatives or these smart manufacturing projects is the beginning. It is then up to you and your teams to really use them and see the benefits of them, and that's what's going to make them the most successful. Okay, so with that, I am going to jump ahead and do a demo unless Jason says there's another important question waiting for me. Sorry, I'm not going to do the demo just yet. My fault. Sorry, mixing up my slides a tiny bit. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ignition and what you're going to see in the demo, and then I'll do the demo. So I've talked about Ignition a bunch of times. What is this thing? So Ignition is a product by Inductive Automation. Started as a SCADA solution, I would say has grown to something a lot more than that and become a real manufacturing platform. Again, I am not an Inductive Automation employee. I can't like truly, if you want to learn a lot more about Inductive Automation and Ignition, definitely talk to those teams. They would love to talk to you about it. But we love it so much at Kanoa, and we build our software exclusively on top of their platform. There's a lot of reasons for that. The unlimited tags and connections was really revolutionary when Ignition started doing it in the space. So when you buy Ignition, you buy it for your plant, you have unlimited amounts of screens and tags and historian tags and database connections and things like that, which is just incredibly powerful and liberating as an engineer and designer to really do whatever you needed to solve the problem that you were facing at the time. The other note in the middle here is really important too, about combining IT and process technology. For a company like Kanoa that's making MES software, this is incredibly powerful because it means all within one platform, I can talk to PLCs and automation devices and my other main IT data source, which is databases, all within one platform, super seamlessly, like it's all the same thing. And it gives us a lot of power in the applications that we develop.
If I can add to that, Sam,
Go for it.
when we discovered Ignition, and this actually when I was in the steel company in here, it truly was a game changer compared to any other industrial software out there. We said here because it's open, it's extensible. But for me, the biggest part of this was the fact of their business model. Not only was it unlimited tags, it was unlimited users. And we had been so frustrated when the systems we were using were saying, this looks like a great software application. Can I get access to it? And to be told, no, sorry, we don't have enough licenses. Now I've got to do an authorization for expenditure to get access to our data. And we know here that a lot of what we do here is about continuous improvement. It's about helping CI teams and reliability engineers and operations people improve the process by analyzing the data. You can really only do that if you can actually get this data that we've collected in the hands of everyone within a company, because it's not just going to be the VPs or the directors who are going to do anything with it. It's probably going to be the process technicians or process engineers, lab technicians, maintenance engineers, it could even be the cleaners. If we can get this in the hands of everyone, you're going to get value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point. Thank you, Jason. Okay, so Ignition is very modular based. You can buy the modules that you need to give it the capabilities you need. If you want a historian, you buy the historian module. If you don't need it, you skip that one. So Kanoa makes modules for Ignition, and we make them in the MES and smart manufacturing space. Essentially, what you are doing with Kanoa is you're buying, again, that extension that takes those core capabilities of Ignition, and in the case of Kanoa Ops, is going to give you a platform for plant scheduling and work order management. We'll do a lot of shift and crew scheduling. We'll control production schedules and make sure the line's doing what it's supposed to. OEE and downtime analytics are a big outcome of these projects. We support both automatic and manual data collection, and we have a full system for managing all of your assets and materials. Similarly, Kanoa Quality, again, a module that you buy for Ignition, plugs right in, and it's going to do more of a paper on glass style form conversion for you. So that's going to give you a system for designing quality check sheets there in the application, being able to dispatch those check sheets to various people and teams as they need to be completed. Again, those do both automatic and manual data collection as well. We have control limit systems in there to give operators real-time feedback on the data they're putting in. There's real-time analytics in SPC. There's also a full sign-off and approval management queue within that as well. So again, Kanoa makes these two modules for Ignition. You can buy them together, you can buy them separate, doesn't really matter. Ops is really focused on that day-to-day management and OEE. Quality is all around getting your paper forms into a digital system. And with that in mind, now I can truly go ahead and we can do a live demo. I'm going to move my screen over. This is our live application. It is just running in a Chrome browser, runs in any HTML5 enabled browser that we have. So again, this is all in Ignition. It's in perspective, which gives us this kind of dynamic HTML5 graphic foundation. It lets us do things like have theming and language support. So again, building on that Ignition foundation is super valuable for us. So I'm going to do a super brief overview of each of our modules. I'm going to try to do this in like less than 10 minutes. It'll be one of the faster demos we've done. If you like what, please reach out to me and we will schedule a more in-depth demo for you and your team.
Perfect. Sam. Quickly, if I could just jump in here, this will be good to look at it through this lens as well. With your background, you were talking about different cybersecurity implications. One quick question that was just dropped into our chat is, do you have all the CMMC and ITAR requirements for government and aerospace?
No, we would need to look into that.
Good. Yeah, I know it's definitely top of mind for a lot of small and mid-sized manufacturers, but definitely would be great to learn more about that. But please, if you could continue with your demo. Thank you, Sam.
Actually, again, sorry here, but again, because we build on top of the inductive automation platform, and actually somebody pointed out that I'm talking without my video. I didn't want to steal Sam's thunder. A lot of the actual requirements, okay, There we go. And regulations are handled by inductive automation. So one of the things that they've always been pushing on here is CFR 2111. Is it Part B? I can never quite remember. For food and drug, a lot of manufacturers are in there. They have very specific requirements. Automation has continually, every month they do a new release, and they've been doing this for 13 years on the software. And it's great for us because we can focus on the manufacturing aspect. Inductive automation and ignition handles that. They have built in the requirements. I know, so software platform is now CFR 21. Am I getting that right, Sam? I can never remember.
CFR 21 Part 11.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was close. That's one. The CMC and the ITAR, I'm not familiar with those, but that's again is something where you go to Ignition because that's the platform we build on. Again, very extensible platform if there are specific requirements. And I do know that, not to name drop, Boeing uses this. In fact, it's 80% of the Fortune 1000 companies. A lot of manufacturing companies, automotive companies will have 60 Ignition servers. So the Ignition platform has been around, and it's probably the #1 platform for manufacturing already out there.
Yeah, and also good point, Jason. And again, like I have more, I shouldn't have just said no so quickly. You're right. Especially in my background in life sciences, if it equates here, is that it's not like the software all the time that is qualified, it's the application, right? Especially since this is a toolkit that you can build so much for. Yeah, you'll want to make sure that the actual way that you have implemented this is meeting all of the standards that you want it to.
Perfect.
Cool. Thank
Great.
you, Norman. Appreciate that. All right, demo time. I'm going to start with Kanoa Ops, then we'll shift over to Kanoa Quality. Kanoa Ops, we're thinking about scheduling, asset management, OEE, downtime management. We're going to see here, I actually have 2 enterprises configured. I have our Kanoa Bakeries and our Kanoa Industries. Each of them has a number of sites that might have 1 or more areas, that might have 1 or more machines underneath it, and we get to see all of that at a glance. And I'm going to go into the Philly Bakery, which just is my hometown, and I know it's got some good simulator data in here. So these are all of our asset cards. These are meant to show at a glance how each of my lines is running. In this site, I have 6 different lines, 2 bake lines, 2 mix lines, 2 pack lines. And what these cards are telling us is the mode and state of each line. So mode is what it's supposed to be doing. State is what it is actually doing. So these are all in a production mode, and I'm getting some feedback back that most of them are truly running, but some are maybe in inspection, or bake line 1 is having an electrical fault and is starting to accumulate more unplanned downtime. We have full work order management in here as well. So I'm not actually running production orders on these lines because it's a simulated system in the background, but they each have a product assigned. They each have progress against that order and a certain rate that they are running at. And then we have our OEE on the right side here. If you're not familiar, OEE is an industry standard metric, great at measuring the efficiency of your lines and breaking that down into availability, performance, and quality, which is availability. Did I run as much as I was supposed to, or was I down? Performance, was I running as fast as I should have been when I was running? And quality, for every part that I made, how many of those were actually sellable? So for mix line 2, we can see for the current run, it's currently at a 60% OEE with 76% availability, 83% performance, and 97% quality. And we can see its hourly OEE scores in this chart here. Let's dive into mix line 2 and take a little bit of a closer look. So these are our asset operations screens. These are designed to really be your operator terminal station, giving them all the things that they need to interact with our system for a given OEE enabled asset. For example, this one is in mix line 2 is in production. It's running according to its schedule. It's making rye dough. Let's say there's something wrong though, and I need to come over here and I'm going to say, we have our maintenance team. We're going to put this equipment into maintenance for a while. I've kicked it out of a production mode. Now we're in that maintenance mode. And there's a couple of ways that we can get it back and running again. I can pick another order that's in its schedule. I can check all of the work orders. I can pick a specific product. Excuse me. I can even click into its schedule and see what is exactly supposed to be running. So we're supposed to be in the middle of a rye dough run, and you can see that we have some production is generally scheduled during the day, and I have some other activities scheduled overnight. So for this case, I'm going to come back to run control. I'm just going to end this active run, which will make this look back at its schedule, figure out what it's supposed to do, and just go ahead and resume that order. A couple of other quick things from this screen. I can go and check out all of my downtimes. And I can go and recode any of these if I need to. So if I say this wasn't a safety fault, I can open this up and I can say that actually this was some type of breakdown and select a reason for that and update that downtime. Oh, that doesn't have any. Awesome. Good demo, Sam. We also have a little run monitor here. So this is really designed to give people feedback right there at the station for how they're performing. So if I'm not changing the run, I'm not putting in manual data, I might have a screen like this up so I can track how I'm doing throughout the day. This is going to show me my OEE for the past 24 hours. I can check my availability and see the things that have caused me to go down. I can check out my performance and see how my actual rate has been compared to my ideal rate. I can even check all of my throughputs and see my in-feed counts, my out-feed counts, and my waste counts for every hour so far over the period, which is a good point for me to stop and pause, and I'll get back to this in a little bit too. But one of the things that is really powerful about this software is everything I have shown you so far only works with just 3 points from the equipment that we're talking to. We get an in-feed count, we get an out-feed count, and we get a state. It can get more complicated than that for certain applications, but it can start simple as that. And as I mentioned earlier, we like when people start simple, right? If you really do have in-feed counts, out-feed counts, and states, and we can think about that for every single one of your machines, you can have all of the data and reports that I'm showing you here. So in addition to this kind of view, I'm going to really quickly talk about some of the reports that you can get out of this. For example, I'll run our downtime report. Like most OEE systems, for every downtime, we have a category and a specific reason code. So we break down every category and every reason. We show them in a couple of graphs, including which shifts might have had the most downtime. And then I also really like this one, which is a stacked column chart to show how much downtime I had of which type every hour during this run. And at the bottom, you'll see we have these tables. You'll see these throughout our application because we always want people to be able to download this data, check it out in more detail, put it through another system if you need to, and we don't want to stop you from doing any of that. I won't go through all of these reports. I really quick want to show this run chart here again, where I can look at a certain asset and see what it was supposed to be running and every event that happened during the period. We can run some OEE charts in here as well, see how that's been. And I didn't get to talk a lot about scheduling. We do have that full operations scheduling system in here. Our shifts follow a similar schedule, but I can be coming in, I can select a period, I can add a new event. It can be a non-production or a production event. I can select a specific item that we want to run. Either way, so I can go through this process and schedule more production, or I can go to our work order section and schedule a specific work order from the line. I can really go into a rabbit hole on this. If you're interested in more of that, give us a call. We'll do a demo. Jason, I saw you turn your camera back on. Anything else I need to hit before I get into quality?
No, I was just going to say, if we take a quick pause, there's a couple of questions. So let's keep this active. And actually, for the first one, which was again going back to the CMMC and ITAR, one of our partners, one of our employees has just had a look, and we do offer AWS. We've talked about cloud computing. We do offer solution here, and if you look at the benefits of it, the AWS is CMMC and ITAR compliant. Again, it's one of the reasons why you can offload a lot of requirements or the needs from an IT perspective to a cloud solution. Sam, there's a question: does the Kanoa software support integrate with any form of digital twin?
I would say yes, it supports integration with any form of digital twin because it just needs data from sources, and we have data, and digital twins would probably love that. I was actually a part of the ISA Digital Twin Committee for a while. I know it's a complicated space that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. I could definitely see where digital twin platforms that are in need of good manufacturing data could really appreciate a lot of the information they would get from Kanoa. And another thing I haven't mentioned so far, we store all this data pretty openly for our customers, but there's nothing like proprietary that we are hiding in this. We are writing this to a SQL database. That SQL database is available for you and your teams to do Power BI reports or SSRS reports or things like that. You can write your own stored procedures against it. That's all fine. So yeah, it's a pretty open database system that you can get a lot of that data from.
Yeah. And if there's more specifics in there, please reach out to us. Again, everything that we built on it, the technologies that are provided today just keep changing. The MQTT gives us the ability that the MQTT, we can use it as a source of information, but anyone can. it can push it up into what we can call a unified namespace. So it really has changed. As Sam was saying, he was on the board of Mesa, or was it chairman of the America board of Mesa? I was also on Mesa as well. ISA 95 used to be, was a pillar of how manufacturing standards should be built, and I've seen software built on it. But there's been this movement towards unified namespace. Let's not have all of these different layers when data moves from machine to SCADA to MES to ERP. Let's just push it out. It could be considered a data lake, or what we call the unified namespace that allows anything to connect. Our application with Ignition, we can containerize it, so we can make CI/CD deployment very easy. So if you want to spin up digital twins, it can actually access the same data. Everything that Sam's doing, he's got an MQTT simulator that's creating and simulating the lines. And when we go into a production facility, we will create those simulators until such a time as we've actually got the connection to the machines in place.
Yep. Yeah, good point. I'll take this last question I see too, Jason, around, does this offer machine and equipment monitoring of heat vibrations, and can we shut things down if we're detecting a malfunction? I will say yes, though that's almost more of an Ignition problem maybe than a Kanoa problem. But yeah, there's a lot of ways that your control systems could be using that type of data to issue a certain command. I've seen it done through a SCADA system like this before. I've seen that done through even dedicated hardware sometimes that has like a direct wire into that interlock. So yes, the idea of using something like Ignition or Kanoa to be monitoring those types of data and then sending a control signal back down to a PLC to shut something down. Yeah, that's certainly possible, though I would call that, again, more of an Ignition capability than a Kanoa one. Jason?
Yes, and that leads on to a great point of saying, again, why did we pick Ignition? Why did we build our products against Ignition? Because Ignition is flexible. It's also a development environment. Everything that Sam's shown you, you can customize, you can change. You don't like the color, you don't like the look of that button, you want to add something to a screen. That is in your realm of possibility. This is a development environment that people within your company can go in, they can add screens, they can modify. So it's on the quality piece, we have it where we are in real time, we're getting data points. So you could actually be looking at temperature probe or a pressure probe. You could have it in there, you've set your upper and lower control limits. You can run Nelson rule violations on it, and you start to see a trend where it's going off Toyota production. We use it to measure the gap in the door. And if we start to see the gap changing, we'll give alerts on the screen. We can give you an alarms, we can do SMS notifications. It's up to you what you want to do with it. And it's easy to then change it. Say, if it reaches a certain point, I want to shut down production. You can put it to an inhibit bit in that machine. It will not go until such time as a quality engineer has been called and said, this is okay. So that's what we built, a flexible software, because we know every manufacturer wants to do something different. And you can't get to a point where you can't configure the software anymore. You'll never get to that point with this application.
Now, and you hit another good point there, Jason, which is a good segue kind of into the last thing I wanted to show on Kanoa Ops, which is around some of the configuration. So we've talked a lot about Ignition. I'm not going to bring up the Ignition designer during any of this because you don't really need it. There's really no code written on the user side of anything we've seen here, and 99% of it is configured here in the application. Here is my asset hierarchy, and we can rebuild and be adding new assets at this point. So I can come in, I can find my bakery, I can add a new line. It's not a problem. Same around modes and states, right? Here are all of my modes. Here are all of my states. I go ahead and I link specific states to specific assets where they apply, and that's how we do all of that mapping. Similar around all of our materials. Here's every material that is configured in our system. Those are associated to specific lines and given specific rates and conversion numbers and things like that. So all this to say, yes, there is complexity to it. This is a complex system. We're solving a complex problem, but it's one that you're not coding for, you're not having to design. And a lot of what you need to get this thing going is right here. And as I joked earlier, yes, you do get to mark your dog barked on a webinar bingo card. That was my dog. Okay, so that is the ops side. I see another question came in. I'm going to go through the quality side a little bit, and then we'll circle back to some questions. Switching gears a bit. So remember, Kanoa Ops, OEE, and performance. Kanoa quality, totally different. You don't need to buy Kanoa Ops to have any of the stuff I'm about to show you work. And this is really around paper on glass, all of those things that I'm writing down in paper forms I'm filling out, how can I turn those into a digital system to make them real time, to give real time feedback, to make sure that people aren't fat fingering the wrong numbers in, all sorts of valuable stuff to turning these into a digital system. And it starts with a screen like this. This is our main active check screen. This is our dashboard into any check in the system that currently needs some attention. You can see I've missed a couple of packaging changeovers. We have a dough dump check that's been submitted but not approved. And actually, I'm going to add a new check. I'm going to add another dough dump check. I'm going to pick the mixer that I am, there we go, mix line, that's it, that I am dumping that out of. I will add it. You'll see it immediately becomes due, and I'm expected to complete this test. Let's go ahead and do it. So I'm double clicking in. This test has some automatic data collection, some manual data collection. For example, I can click this, I can click take measurement. It goes out, grabs these couple of points I've configured, stores them in the form. That's great. We don't have direct data connections to all the measurements we want to take. I'm going to go into my manual checks here. I'm going to record how much this weighed when it dropped out. I'm going to take 3 temperature readings. I might review all of that data before I do a final submit, and then I will submit. And this one requires a sign off. So it actually went to the sign off state. I'm also an approver, which in this case, again, for demo purposes, great, not recommended for your plant. But now you can see we have 2 tests in here that you can go ahead and complete. Let me open up one of these packaging changeover tests. I want to show you something in here too. So for these swap tests, we've talked about the real-time feedback that we can be giving operators. Notice that when I've hit this previous roll weight, we have this configured to use control limits. So if I put in 550, that's going to give me a green good number, and it's going to show me where that lands up here in my control bar. I put in 625, it is a less happy orange. I put in a 675. Oh, sorry, I put in 7,000 and didn't even allow it because it's outside of the limit. 675, that's going to be a bad red, and it's showing up here at the top too, which is just showing me as I progress through my test. So yeah, that idea of just giving operators real-time feedback. Are you giving good or bad data? Really powerful to make sure you're getting the right data the first time. So we've shown kind of some manual tests, some automatic tests. We actually have some tests that run entirely automatically and just run in the background. They don't need operator intervention. They just go. So to show you one of those, I'm going to pull up the check details. I'm going to pull this fermentation temperature check that I believe, let's see, I'll run this for last week. So yeah, every 20 minutes, this runs out. It grabs these 3 data points on success. It's good. It closes itself out, logs it to the database, which makes some really great data for those SPC charts that Jason was describing earlier. I can chart all this data. I could run my Nelson SPC rules against it. I can highlight my Rule 1 violations. There's my Rule 6s. There's my Rule 7s. I can roll all this onto a histogram and see where my data is lying, right? So we have a lot of those analytical tools right here in the platform as well. We do have some check summaries as well. So we're showing, again, not just the date, we're not just giving you reports and data of the information in the check. We're giving you reporting on the status of the checks themselves. So maybe I'm not interested in what's approved, but I am curious about the things that have been submitted and not approved, or things that have been missed, so I can check the efficacy of these tests and if they're actually being completed on time. Again, a lot to show deeper into reporting on quality, but we only have so much time. So the thing I really want to show is similar to ops. This is a no-code platform when it comes to designing all of these check sheets. You coding in it, you can be going and extending it to your heart's content. But let's take a look at that dough dump check. Everything that was in that is here in the editor, right? So you can have some meta info, you have some settings. Here's where I'm saying that this required a sign off and that it was going to require an asset. We can add in more groups at the top up here, and those will show up in our tabs. I can add in new tests, and we have this whole interface to go through and do that. Yeah, our philosophy around this is that the people that are designing your quality check sheets are usually not ones that have a ton of programming knowledge. They don't need to get into the Edition Designer. Everything that you need to do to design a test and walk operators through that process and schedule it is all here in the application using just natural intuitive design. And that is most of what I have for the demo. And we only have 10 minutes left, so I think I'm going to get back to the presentation and then wrap up with a Q&A. Again, if you want to see more of that, I'll give you a scheduling link at the end of this. Are we back to my presentation?
Yes, we are.
Great. Okay, sorry if I rush a little bit. I'm running a little low on time, but it's okay. We'll get through it. Real quick, data-driven actions. The value that we're doing a lot of this for is around trying to compress this loop and get things turned around in it as quickly as possible. So DMAIC, a common thing from Lean Six Sigma, this idea that to solve problems in manufacturing, we have to find the problem, then we do measurements, analytics, and propose an improvement plan. Then we have to control that improvement so it sustains itself long term. Defining problems is usually easy. You walk to your plant floor, you start pointing out problems left and right. It's the rest of this process and how quickly you can get that done, which is really going to dictate the pace of your continuous improvement in general. And that's where the smart manufacturing technology helps, right? So many times we'll see Lean Six Sigma practitioners who can certainly define a problem, but they really struggle to figure out where to find the manufacturing data and do the analysis on it so they can make a recommendation. Systems like Kanoa's make that just a natural calculation and a part of all of the data that is available in your plants. Another thing that we look for, I talked about it a little bit, is this idea of simple inputs that yield powerful outputs. And I do think that Kanoa Ops is a really great example of this. If all I need to get from a piece of equipment is its in-feed count, its out-feed count, and its state, and I pump those through Kanoa Ops, I get all of this on the other end. I get all of my OEE, I get all of my downtime reasons, I get my first pass quality, and I get to sort them by equipment, by shift, by run, by time period. I get all sorts of stuff with just that minimal data up front, and we think that is what smart manufacturing is all about. Similarly, on the quality side, I hate seeing paper on shop floors. I know how it got there. It's easy, it's cheap, it's fast to implement. It's a good answer, and it's what we had for the longest time. But there are just drawbacks inherent to that solution. You will never get real-time feedback. You can have somebody forget to do a check, and you won't know until you realize that form isn't filled out at the end of the shift. Anytime that you're writing something down and then entering it into a computer system and then entering it into 3 more computer systems because they all don't talk to each other, wasted time, right? And there's never a possibility to improve that. You'll never time this unless you're literally putting a pencil in a robot's hand. It's always
exactly. And I just want to say, Sam is normally one who keeps me on track for time, so I'm actually going to keep Sam on track. We've got 8 minutes. We should probably get to questions and answers. I see there's a couple already in there.
Sure. And I am pretty much done. So let's talk about the questions real quick. Do we have weigh and dispense? Jason?
That's a question for me. No, at the moment we have Kanoa Ops, we have Kanoa Quality. We base this around what we need for MES. Again, here it's the sort of thing that we do implementations. Every time we do an implementation, there's always something more than the manufacturer needs. We can build it. The manufacturer can build it if they have ignition developers, and most companies they'll have controls engineers or people inside or IT who can build the things that you need. We do have a roadmap. That actually isn't one of them on there. There's been a lot of options in here, but you can definitely talk to us about that. We will be extending the offerings.
For sure. Yes, we're always looking to expand. I see the next question here around how much training is required for this to be deployed and configured and then operated. That's a really great question. And of course, it can really vary. I will say that with the base configuration, if you are just doing the in-feeds, out-feeds, and states, and if you have a good sense of your process, it's a pretty low training burden, really. We've been training some integrators. They're getting up and up to speed on this within a week, really. If you've configured other MES systems, in particular, it's very intuitive. On the operations side, a lot of, especially if you're using that one main operations terminal screen that we showed earlier, we've done that in an hour or two with operators, especially, and most of it is around the concept of what they are doing. What are these modes? What are these states? I need to follow this schedule. Is that you're changing their processes more than it is like an understanding of the software.
Actually, if I can add to that, from there, we do have a full online help. We have it where you point from the application to the help. I don't know if you noticed here, if you look at our application, in some places, it looks really simple. We have gone with this process of making stuff intuitive. We have a QA team and they're always looking at it. If they don't understand something, they get irritated.
Yeah.
We've always said here is nobody's read a manual on how to use Google or eBay. In this modern day and age, it should just be intuitive. Whether you're trying to use modern IT technologies and web interfaces to bring that same level to manufacturing. I'm going to go on and take the next one, which is about integrating this with ERP. Absolutely. Sam showed you how we can configure assets and we can create all the materials you need and give the standard rates. And you can do it in our application, and we will need that data. But a lot of times we go in, you already have it. You may have a PLM, your product lifecycle management system. You may have a CMMS. You may have all these different systems in place, and you're definitely going to have an ERP, and we will connect in here. Ideally, we will get it because you don't want to have it where you're creating materials in your ERP system and then you have to go and create it in MES. So we could use and support web services, SOAP or RESTful. Again, it's the power of Ignition. They create all the possible interfaces. We can just use them. So if we've got a web service, we can be a web service provider as well as consumer. We can have a bi-directional flow of information, not just the ERP, but any other one of your systems. We can use middleware tables. Heck, we can read flat files if that is the best way your IT department thinks it's on there. And we've connected to Oracle, SAP, Infor, Vicinity, and a host of others.
Yeah, actually, that almost comes back to the previous question a little bit around how long does it take to deploy or configure? And again, our background in consulting around the answer to every problem is it depends. And that's a good point of like where it can depend, right? How much it's going to take to deploy and configure this. If we're talking to an ERP system and a PLM system and another one and doing all that coordination can take a little bit of time. If you're going to do all of that just in Kanoa, it works on the first day. Yeah, a lot of different ways that we can flex that up and down. Great question. I loved every question that we got today. I really appreciate everybody paying attention and thinking about it and throwing a couple of ideas out there. Thank you all for participating. That was really great. I did skip a quick slide about kind of some benefits and things like that. We talked about a lot of these already. You're doing this to save money. There's lots of ways that smart manufacturing is going to save you money. Happy to talk about more of these with you later if you would like, but I really do want to make sure we have another opportunity to thank Camps and Norman and the team for inviting us today. Check out our website, follow us on LinkedIn if you want to follow up more with Kanoa, and I also do have Ignition's information on there as well if you wanted to learn more about them.
Great, wonderful. Yes, thank you very much to Camps and Coaster, and as well to Sam and Jason for your time in presenting today. This is very exciting stuff. It's just all around that ecosystem of enterprise management systems and how we can just connect users with their data to make data-driven decisions. So we're only really just scratching the surface. It's the beginning, as you mentioned earlier, Sam, in the beginning of your presentation. So very exciting times to come. We will definitely get your contact information out to camps in the community. So you may be hearing from folks with follow-on questions, and I know that we're very excited. In the interest of time, we'll go ahead and conclude here. But thank you again for attending and being here this morning. And we will see everyone for our next meeting, April 3rd, same time, first Wednesday of the month. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and week. We'll see you later.